Screen. So we are beginning Sha'ar Gimel, the third Sha'ar of the Nefesh HaHaim. Interestingly, Reb Chaim begins it. He just picks up where he left off. He had quoted the Maimer Chazal. It's actually a Mishnah in Brachas about Chasidim Harishonim Hayu Shoyin Sha'achas Umispalalim Kedei Sheyichavnu Es Libam Lamakom. And of course, that was part of the context of Sha'ar Beis, which was all about davening and the heights that we ascend to davening, and then after we fall to the lows in Tachanun, we fall on our face. But he had quoted that Mishnah, and the truth is there's two different Girsaot. I want to show you, I looked it up now. The Mishnah, it's the first Mishnah. Yeah, exactly. Avinu Shebashamayim, very good, Jay. Ein oimnin lispala mitoich koivin roish. Chasidim Harishonim Hayu Shoyin Sha'achas Umispalalim Kedei Sheyichavnu Libam Le'avihem Shebashamayim. So a little bit different girsa of what's the focus of the Chasidim Rishonim, these great, pious men of old, that they used to spend an hour before their prayer and an hour in their prayer and an hour after their prayer. We call it decompression. And the Gemara says that even though Sha'achas sometimes means, a moment or a period, doesn't really necessarily mean 60 minutes. But in this case, it does mean 60 minutes. And if you do the math, that means they spent 3 hours in each of the prayer services, and there's 3 a day. So they were davening 9 hours a day. So don't try this at home. But the Gemara asks, how can you do it? When could they learn Torah? When could they accomplish their work and earn a living? And the Gemara says, Mitoich she'ayu chasidim. These were great and pious men. They were able to accomplish their work and learn their Torah in a very short amount of time and invest this tremendous part of their lives in prayer and what we would call meditation. So, although the Mishnah that we're looking at is the version we have in the Gemaras, and I think the Mishnayos also, and it has that it was so they could be mechaven their heart to their Father in heaven, but the Nefesh HaChaim brought a different girsa in the Rif, and in the Rif and Rabbeinu Yoina, there's a perush of Rabbeinu Yoina on brachos, and there his girsa is mispalalim kedei sheyichavnu libam lemakom, and so that's what he wants to talk about in the beginning of Sha'ar Gimel. Mashekasiv kan lemakom. And this is a term that we're all familiar with. I'll say 2 examples. One is Seder Pesach, Baruch HaMakom, Baruch Hu. Right? We all say that in the Seder Pesach. But because, Rav Daniel was a day of Avelus and your wife is sitting Shiva, we say Hamakom Yanachem Eschem, B'soich Sha'ar Eveli Tzion Yerushalayim. That's another place where we use Hamakom. We don't say Hashem should be, Menachem. We use, for whatever reason, and this comes from the Gemara, this phrase that we say to mourners is Hamakom Yanachem. So what is the meaning of Makom? Which, of course, its simple meaning is place. And yet, it's a reference here to Hashem. And so sometimes the English translations, they use the omnipresent, that God is in every place, God is everywhere. But that's what he wants to talk about, the meaning of this word makom in this context. So he brings another example, v'chein ba'avois, amru kshata mispalel al taset tfiloscha keva ela rachamim v'tachnunim lifnei makom baruch hu. So that one we do have, that's our girsa in Pirkei Avos, about davening shouldn't be done as something fixed and just to get it done, to show up and do it and go home. Rather, it's begging for mercy, it's rachmim, tachanunim, supplications, lifnei makom baruch hu. So again, for sure, a specific characterization of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. It could have said the king. It could have said, Hashem has 70 names and lots of different descriptions. And so Chazal decided to use the term hamakom here. And so what's that about? So that's what the Nefesh HaChaim wants to talk about.
Is that the only girsa for this? Lifnei
I think-
makom baruch hu?
I think so. I don't know of another one. So Ramzu Zal betevat makom le'inyan gadol. This is a big deal. This word makom. Va'inyan sarich biur lahavin oimek kavanasam zal bezeh. And so we got to really delve into the depths of it to understand it. V'lemizbar kroi haroim zim zeh. And there are psukim that relate to this topic, and so it needs further study and discussion, and that's where he's going to take us. And now a lot of what he does, interestingly, for the rest of this chapter is just talk about sort of the depth of Divrei Chazal and how every word is meaningful, and you have to be careful with it and take it very seriously. So he says, Kvar amru zal ba'avois shekol divreim kegachale esh. Every word of Chazal is like smoldering embers. Okay, gachelet is like a coal, a charcoal. And it's esh, gachale esh. Kemo sha'gachelet, sha'av shelo nir'a ba, rak nitzotz esh. You look at a coal, and maybe it's mostly burnt. You don't see a lot of light or heat. You just see like a spark. But im tasim kochacha ba, lahafcha ulenapcha. But if you stoke it, you use the bellows, you breathe on it, and you turn it over. Kol shenitpatcha yoiser tislahev v'tispashet ba hanitzotz. So anybody who likes to play with fire, pyromaniacs, campfire, as it's going out, you know that if you give it attention and you blow on it, and in Israel they call it naf, right? That's something that everybody does at the mangal.
The naf.
The naf, exactly. So you can take smoldering embers that look like there's not much power left in them, but when you apply, you turn them over and you breathe on them, you bring oxygen, so it can flame up again tremendously. So that's how, like Divrei Torah, that's how the words of Chazal are. They seem like stam words, but if you investigate and you breathe life into them, so they totally come to life and bring all this warmth and insight and great illumination. So if you invest in this charcoal, it becomes a sort of source of light and heat. But don't think you can touch it or pick it up with your hand. You'll get burnt. You have to be careful with it. You have to know how to deal with it properly. Shekevin shenases locheshet tzarich zehirus shelo techaveba. But it requires caution that you shouldn't get burnt by it. Kein b'dimyon zeh nimshalu kol divrei chachamim. So this is a mashal for all the words of Chazal. She'av shenirim dvarim ktsarim upshutim. They say very pithy things. Just a few words, few short words. It seems maybe simple or obvious, but the truth is, avalhem kipatish shifotzatsu. But the truth is, it's like a shattering hammer blow, and it can release sparks that can create great flames. Shekol she'adam mehafech u'misalsel u'medaktek behem ya'oiru einav mishal heves oiram hagadol. And that is so true. And I think we've all experienced that. You learn Gemara, and as you start at the beginning of the sugya, you don't really know what it's talking about, and it seems maybe trivial or abstruse. You can't figure out, where they're coming from. But if you invest in it and you read the Meforshim and you think about it and you examine it and you really give it, you put some soul into it, some heart and soul, it turns into great light and a source of illumination and warmth. So that I have this experience all the time in Divrei Torah. Shimtza b'toicham inyanim amukim, you find great deep things. Ke'amram zal hafoch ba ve'hafoch ba dukulo ba. Everything is in there in the depth of the Divrei Torah of Chazal. But you got to be careful. Aval tzarich lizor me'od b'gachaltan. Shelo likanes lizboinen velachkor b'dvarim she'eina reshus nesuna lizboinen behem yoiser midai. So now Reb Chaim is relating to the fact that we're discussing Kabbalistic concepts, particularly Sha'ar Gimel of the Nefesh HaHaim is about the idea known as Tzimtzum, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mitzamtzem himself in order to create the world. How does the Tzimtzum work? What does it mean? Is he hiding? Is he there? Is he constricted? Is he invisible? We'll see different, understandings as we go through this Sha'ar, but that is the topic, and it is a sensitive topic, which is certainly not in the Torah Shebichsav, or in the revealed part of the Torah. You don't find it in the Gemara, this term really of Tzimtzum at all. So it's a Kabbalistic concept, and it's very important, actually, philosophically and theologically, that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mimale kol almin, if he fills up all the worlds, and his perfection sort of demands that, if God is perfect and he's everywhere and complete and lacks nothing, so how is there room for anything else to exist? It's a fair question. And so, the details of it we'll have to see, but the big answer is this term called Tzimtzum, of a Kadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol constricting himself in order to create the possibility for creating other things outside of himself.
I never thought of it, based on what I've learned from the Ramchal, because Ramchal discusses this
Yes.
quite a bit. I never thought of Hashem being mitzamtzem. I just thought it's his creations, that every creation that he made involves a tzimtzum, because if it didn't, there'd be no end. If he creates a zebra or a bunch of zebras, unless there's a tzimtzum, there's just going to be zebras and zebras and zebras, with no end. So every creation he creates, but it has to have an end point or a limitation point. And that limitation point is a tzimtzum. I never really thought. I thought God's actions are mitzumtzam, but not himself. I guess it's just semantics, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll see as we go on. So anyway, it's definitely a sensitive topic, talking about the expansiveness of God, or did he put limitations on himself? So he's warning us essentially, be careful with this stuff, that you don't want to get burnt. You don't want to go off the derech philosophically or whatever. So he's medayik the language of the Mishnah, that you want to use these coals, these burning embers, and create light and heat, but you want to be careful to stand across from it. You don't want to refrain or distance yourself entirely from contemplating the depths of their words, because then you won't appreciate the depth of Jewish wisdom. But on the other hand, you can't, run with all your might to get too close, because then you could get burned. Rak mineged. So that's the word they use, keneged, mineged, which means across from, at a comfortable distance. Be careful with these smoldering embers. Okay. V'hine kan ksiv makom gam kein. Hagam shepshuto muvan, the simple meaning of place. Aval kishenidaktik bo nimsek sheklalo v'ramazo b'zeh od inyan gadol. Its plain meaning is clear, but when we examine it meticulously, we'll find that another great matter is contained and hinted at within it. Ki inyan ma shehu yizbarach nikra makom. Why is Hashem called makom? Perushuhu zal in Bereshit Rabbah about Yaakov Avinu v'yivga b'makom. Right? It says that Yaakov yivga b'makom, and let's see. Let's take a quick look at that pasuk. V'yivga b'makom v'yolen sham. Kiva Hashemesh v'ikach me'avnei ha'makom v'yasim rashosav yishka b'makom hahu. So the truth is, the pasuk has the word makom 3 times in it. V'yivga b'makom me'avnei ha'makom v'yishkav b'makom. And And how should we understand that? He came upon a certain place. I mean, the Pashut Pshat, I think, is like the English, that it's a place, but there's a remez here, or a drash. And the drash in the Midrash, V'yivga b'makom, Rav Huna, in the name of Rav Achmi, Amar mipnei ma mechanim shmoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'korin oiso makom, shehu mekoimoi shel oilam, ve'ein oilamo mekoimo. Okay, beautiful sentence of Chazal, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mekoimo shel oilam, ve'ein oilamo mekoimo. So I love that statement. I think it's really powerful and wonderful that, you think, where is God in the world, and where is his place, or what is his place? And all we know is, what we know is the world. And even if we think we could think bigger than Earth, we could think the solar system or the galaxy or the universe. And we think, where is God in the universe? And he's big and so forth. But the truth is, ein oilamo mekoimo. The universe can't contain God, because God is infinite. And even if you tell me the universe is infinite, still. So, on the contrary, hu mekoimo shel oilam. God is, as it were, the place in which the universe is found. Okay, so God is bigger than anything else, and he's kaviyachol, containing everything else that exists. So that's the beginning of a thought about the magnitude and the awesome, the majesty, but the vastness of the Creator. So that's a quote from the Midrash about Yaakov Avinu. Ubishmois Rabba in Tanchuma, Vayomer Hashem hine makom iti. Right? He tells Moshe Rabbeinu, hine makom iti besela. And so again, Chazal darshan that word makom. And how do they have it? It is Amr Yosef bar Chalafta, Atre tfeila li ve'enani tafel atari. So an atar is Aramaic for a place, that my place is tafel to me, and I am not tafel to my place. Okay? So again, that's the same idea, and it's in a Socher Tov, in Tehillim is more tzaddik, the same midrashic idea, that there's no place that could contain God. God contains all places, and we're going to talk more about that. Ulefi pshuto, a simple understanding of that. Ratzalomer kamosha hamakom, place. Let's think about the basic idea of what a place is. So I was thinking of coordinates, like latitude and longitude, or even a place on a table, a very specific place. The place allows things to exist within it. At a certain, coordinate on the map, there's a city or a neighborhood or even a house on Google Maps. You could, see your own house on Google Maps. And on a certain place on the table, you could put, a cup of coffee. But if that place on the table didn't exist, where would you put your coffee? You need a place in order to put something in it. So place, in this sort of philosophical perspective, allows for the existence of its contents. So that's what he's saying. Kamosha makom hu sovel umachzik eze davar v'chafetz hamunach alav. Okay, a place supports and allows the existence of something to be put there within. Kain b'dimyon zeh haboire adon kol yizbarach shmo hu hamakom amiti hasoivel umekayim haolamois v'abriois kulam. So in the same respect that a certain place has a house in it, or a city in it, or a country, so too a Kadosh Baruch Hu is the place that allows the existence of the Oilamos and all creations. So he is Mekoimo Shel Oilam. She'im chas v'shalom yisalek koichoi mehem af rega achas. If Hashem would remove for even a moment his koyach from the existence of things, Efes makom kiyum v'chiyus kol oilamos, k'mo shekasu ve'ata mechaya es kulam. God is constantly infusing life and existence into everything that exists. And if he would remove or misalik, that infusion of energy and existence into any given thing or every given thing, it would all cease to exist instantaneously. That's a really big theme of the Nefesh HaHaim. He's going to continue with it throughout this Sha'ar and the fourth Sha'ar also, which is about Limud Torah. And his idea is that if there was nobody learning Torah, the world would cease to exist. So you have to constantly maintain the connection between HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Creator, and the Bria, His creation. And what keeps it running, the fuel, if you will, is the oisios, the letters of the Holy Torah as they're learned by the Jewish people. So at every moment of every day and every night, there have to be Jews somewhere. That's why we have time zones. So the people in Australia can learn while we sleep, and then the people in America, and there's Chabad in Hawaii, so they'll take care of, when we're sleeping over there. So you have at all times an infusion of spiritual energy to keep Hashem intimately connected as the Makoimo Shel Oilam, to
What did
maintain.
they do before the Galut?
Yeah,
That stay up late.
Yeah, right. That's why we needed Galus, I'm afraid.
Is there some element of the concept of makom anthropomorphism? Because we know and we say, in lo guf, in lo demut guf, he doesn't need a place. There's a place. Is it for our purposes? For our limited, minds, because he has no form. He has no.
Yeah, no, it's
boundaries.
it's not a three-dimensional space. We're not
A
saying that
physical
God is
place.
three-dimensional space. It's not. You're right that it's not that. I think he's using it as a mashal v'dimyon, just like a three-dimensional object has to be somewhere in space. So too, everything that exists has to have an underlying conceptual framework in which it exists. And so that underlying framework is I would still say it's a mashal for Hashem. And he's telling, why is Hashem called Hamakom? Because he is behind everything that exists. But not that he's three-dimensional space, because you're right, he's not physical. So that's true.
Isn't this a theoretical concept? I mean, of Hashem withdrawing himself from a place. If Hashem is everywhere, I mean, how's that going to happen?
Well, we didn't get yet to, the mamish, the tzimtzum or a siluk, we haven't seen that yet. So far, he's just introducing the term makom and why Hashem is called a makom, and he's made a parallel between the way that a place allows something to exist within it, so too Hashem gives the capacity for everything else that exists to exist. And I'll say, yeah.
It's more like a musag. It's like a concept.
I agree.
And you could have ideas and thoughts in that concept.
Yeah, fat.
As opposed to a place. I guess I just don't like the word place. It should be idea, concept, some other fancy word. I don't know.
The Rambam says, Kol ma nimtza mi amitat himatz'o. Okay, so I like that formulation, that everything that exists due to or because of, and we might even say within, the truth of God's existence. So God's existence is the most primary, fundamental, necessary existence, the only true, real existence for eternity, and it's perfect and unchanging. And everything else that seems to exist and that maybe does exist, it exists within amitat himatz'o. So that's the language of the Rambam.
I guess we're also going to have to understand, a pasuk like Vayered Hashem. What does that mean? Hashem's there. What do you mean by Yered Hashem?
Yeah, movement.
He went down. Like
definitely.
He was one place, he was up there, and now he came down.
Absolutely. That has to be a borrowed term. Can't be Kipshuto. So he said Hashem is mechaya es kulam. He's giving life to everything that exists. So that's part of, again, this energy and this giving the capacity for other things to exist. He's mechaya them. He's giving them life and existence. V'hu pinat yisod emunat Yisrael. This is at the heart. This is the cornerstone. Pinat yisod, the foundation of Jewish faith. K'mo shekasav Rambam Zal in the beginning of the Yad Chazaka. V'lechein koire b'zohar le'adon kol yizbarach shmo nishmasa dekula nishmasin. So, like in one sentence, he puts it in the Rambam, the philosophy, and then he quotes the Zohar, that God is called the soul neshama of all neshama souls. He's the neshama of the neshamos. And now he uses that mashal. Kemosha neshama, mechaya umekayemes haguf. So think of your body. Think of Nebuch, a corpse, a dead body, when the neshama has departed. So it's just body. But while we're alive, the neshama is giving life to the body. Haneshama mechayo mekayemes haguf, like it says, V'ki efsher lechatichas basar gimel yamim shelo yisrach. A piece of meat would rot after 3 days. So how does a person live for, shivim and shmoinim shana? Because the neshama is giving life. V'chein hu yizbarach shmo hu levado chai oilamim kulam v'kiyadua b'makomis rabbis b'tikunim. And Reish Hagdama Shegin Shel Atikunim b'Maimer Patach Eliyahu v'Kein Razal Dimu Kiyum Kol Ha'olam Al-Yedei Koicho Yizbarach. The existence of all the world is through Koicho Yizbarach. L'Kiyum Aguf Al-Yedei Koicho Yishaneshama. A parallel, a metaphor perhaps, the way that the soul maintains the body. And the body, which is just physical, is a living organism that continues to recreate itself at all times. And that's coming from the power of the neshama, the life force within the neshama. So too, Amru Maha Neshama Meleah Vizana et Kol Haguf. Just like the neshama fills and sustains and nourishes the whole body, so again, it's not exact, but it's it's something to begin to think about. Like our soul fills our body and sustains it, so too Hashem fills the universe and sustains it. Zeu pashtus inyan shehu yizbarach nikra mekoimo shel oilam. That is the simple understanding of this term, Mekoimo. Hashem is called Hamakom, that he is called Mekoimo Shel Oilam.
I think, the analogy to the neshama sustaining the goof. I mean, we like to think that, there's 2 extremes. There's life and there's death. But when you really analyze it, as we get older, our bodies start to degenerate, if I can use that term. Things don't work as well as they used to, and some things don't work at all in some people. But they're still alive. So how would you understand that the neshama, what is neshama now weaker in these people? That they have impairment of their function, of their anatomy, their physiology. What's going on?
Oh, it wasn't always like that.
Like Avram Avinu you're talking about.
Yeah, it was only until was it Yitzchak or Yaakov?
It was Yaakov.
He was Yaakov who first began to be ill, degenerate. Before that, they didn't. So
okay, well,
so the aging
process
process
not working. So this whole mechanism has changed. Are you saying that the neshama is withdrawing slowly from the body as we age?
It's a really good question about how to understand the aging process. And as the body loses some of its capability and as it ages and degenerates. What is happening there? I think, is there a separation there that the neshama is less present? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't want to say what I don't know. I want to share an idea about the makom, and that is the following. The word makom has a gematria of 186. Okay, the kuf being 100, two mems are 80, and the vav is 186. And
we're not using the hey because it's always hamakom when we refer to Hashem.
It says Hine Makomiti. Doesn't say Hamakomiti.
Doesn't it say hamakom yenachem or baruch hamakom?
You're right that in those usages it's with the hey, but Jay's right also that in the midrashim it's just Hine makomiti besela.
I don't want to ruin the gematria, but
it's okay. So if we look at the Shem Yud Ke Vav Ke, and we isolate each one of its letters. So you start with the Yud and you square it. And so Yud squared is 10 times 10 is 100. And each of the Heys is 5. And 5 times 5 is 25. And you have it twice. So that's 50. So we got 150. And the Vav times Vav is 36. So 150 and 36 is 186. The same gematria as makom. So there, to me, that's a really beautiful idea that we're taking the letters, which, we could think of them in a sense as being flat or one-dimensional. But when we square them, we're creating space. We're expanding to a different dimension. And I mean, this gematria is brought by the Megalemukois and others. I didn't make it up. It comes from the Kabbalists, and it's giving voice to this idea that Hashem is creating space in which everything can exist, and that space is coming from Yud Ke Vav Ke, which itself means Hoya Hoyve V'Yiyeh Umehave Es Hakol. Right, the name Yud Ke Vav Ke is very much existential. It's about God's eternal and constantly present existence in every moment, and that He's allowing everything else that exists to exist. So if you take those letters and you multiply by themselves, so then you get to this idea of makom, a place where everything can exist. I think I'm going to leave it at that for tonight, and we'll go on to Perek Beis next time. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And looking forward to seeing you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Be well, everyone.